I'm Kelly. I'm an event head for the debate team.
I'm Pragati, and I'm co-president, and I do LD.
And I'm Evelina, and I am also an event head, and I do policy.
So we offer 5 different events plus speech on the team. We have 5 debate events, and then like speech. So we offer Lincoln Douglas, which Pragati can talk about more. Policy, which is what Evelina and I do, and then we have public forum, Congress, and World Schools. That's the one I always forget, and World Schools. And they offer different like types of debate, different forums and topics based on your own preferences.
Yeah, so they're all different, like round structure, and they're all like centered around different kind of things.
The way that I would frame it for people who maybe never done it before, or like would be interested in joining, is like we have like obviously really great event heads who essentially like are able to kind of like ease anyone who has absolutely no experience into it. We have tournaments like weekly, and it's just kind of like for each event, like you have to do a lot of research like outside of it, but then when you go to competition, it's kind of just like there's 4 rounds, and it's just like a great environment, and like everyone's like really tight knit, and yeah.
And it's more than just like the debate. Like there's a lot of like community, especially like when you go to tournaments, and like it's like running behind and all that kind of stuff. You really build like friendships with people, and like it's like through debate. Like I found some of my closest friends through debate.
There's like a whole friend group.
Yeah, like definitely like some mentors, people older than me, people even younger than me, who I would never met if they weren't in debate, if I wasn't in debate, stuff like that. And then over the course of these tournaments, these like super long bus rides home, stuff like that. Like you really build like a community and a friendship.
Having those like older mentors, I think, was also just so helpful for me as a freshman, just to have people who were like succeeding through high school and doing like similar things that I wanted to do, and I was able to ask them about that, just about like the college process and classes and everything I was so concerned about as a freshman. It was really nice. I felt really welcomed into the community.
Okay, so policy, so Kelly and I both do policy, we're partners. It is it's a partner event, and it's technically the oldest debate event. It's at its core, it's the affirmative introduces a policy, and the negation argues that policy is bad or won't work or like cause negative effects, that sort. It's of all the debate events, it is likely the most like technical. There's a lot of jargon, but it's super like it takes some time to learn, but you understand it, and it's very creative. There's a lot of flexibility because basically every year there's like an overarching resolution where your policy or your piece of like legislation has to fit under, and then every affirmative team makes their own policy. So there's a lot of creativity in what you can choose and all the different types of like arguments you can run. It's not like
PF is really similar. It's just like you have that resolution, and instead of arguing a policy for it, you just argue if like policy should be implemented under that resolution. And it's very like weighing and impact based. And so like I think the science behind it can get really
I think with policy is more focused on implementation. Like public forum is kind of like a branch off of policy almost, where it's like more so the advantage with this narrative.
And then Congress, they go over dockets every few months, legislation, and they argue about the wording, they argue about if it should pass or not, and that's you in a room with like a bunch of other people. And so there's not like a set speaking structure either. It's really cool, like the strategy behind when you should speak and what you should say.
And it's interesting because in Congress, the judges, they don't have a winner or a loser. They basically like rank you.
I can talk about LD, which is like Lincoln Douglas. As we mentioned earlier, it's more of like a philosophical style of debate. So essentially at the root of it, it's kind of just your case centered around a value structure. So you have a value and just like a weighing mechanism for your value. So your value is what your case is going to be centered around, like morality, liberty, justice, utilitarianism, like it can be like a wide variety of things. And your case is essentially talking about how you're upholding that value, and through either affirming or negating the resolution, how the world is like affected by it, utilizing that like specific value as your weighing measure, right? So topics in LD like kind of like it comes to a standstill between like the idea of like morality versus like consequences, right? So it's really interesting. Like some topics we've had in the past have ranged from like climate change to like open borders, like space privatization. So kind of just like arguing like the ethicality and like the morals behind just like everything. But yeah, it's
tough.
LD is
so tough. I've seen one round and it's like the most abstract thing.
I've heard that like people can get pretty aggressive in LD. Yeah, LD's very aggressive. like. I think we always portray it as kind of just like, oh, it's like a cute little like event.
Oh, philosophy, good or bad, and then you get it,
Good or bad.
and they're like,
But
pragmatism.
it's behind the balance between just evaluating raw consequences and values, which can get like pretty intense sometimes, but yeah, it's a fun event. And then our last event, debate event, which is World Schools. So World Schools is our only team event. It's 3 to 5 people, and it's really interesting because in Worlds there's something called impromptu rounds. So it's like you get your like resolution or whatever you're arguing, like you and your team, like I think an hour, like 30 minutes before you an hour before you have to compete, and essentially you have like you and your team have to like write up your case,
and
or,
you
like, your
don't
argument.
get
You
like
don't get
computers
you don't
or
get
internet.
computers. Yeah, and you have to like you and your team come up with your argument, and you kind of go in and just start debating. So it's really fun for people who like to think on their feet, like people who love to work with a team. It's just a really fun event overall, and you have pre-arranged topics as well that kind of like shift on like pretty frequently compared to other events.
Or like for tournament.
Yeah, so it's like really fluid. It's really fun.
It really doesn't use as much evidence either,
Yeah.
and the impromptu rounds tend to be less deep topics.
Yeah,
right?
the
They tend to
impromptu
be
Is it
rounds-
more like value based, or is it more
I
evidence,
think-
or is it like
I think it typically like sometimes it'll be like if I had to pick between evidence or value based, I would definitely say value based, just because a lot of the time when you aren't like even with the prearranged topics, you don't typically use a lot of like the carding, the evidence that you'll be seeing in like other debate events. But like especially with impromptu topics, it's usually like I know one for like the upcoming week is like would you rather be feared over like being loved, like things like that, like Machiavelli, like it's super like it can get really philosophical,
But I
especially
think they kind of have both because
Yeah.
I know that impromptu rounds, kind of like Kelly mentioned, they're not stuff that you would have to research. Like I think like around the Olympics was it 2 years ago or something, they had stuff on like
You
are
can't
the
use
Olympics good
internet.
or bad, stuff like that. So like things that people kind of generally know about. But I think that with even with like the prepared rounds, there are some that are like very value based, like that one. I think they also have some that are more like evidence based. I think they had a couple like climate change ones like that. But I think it's what like if you would consider like you could probably put most resolutions in a World Schools round.
At its
I think it's
core,
spot.
I think World Schools is like very structural based. The way it's been described to me as like the pretty form of debate, because it's very about like defining and attacking each points of what your opponent is making, and just going into like how you could respond and in what order you should respond.
And then there's the speech events, and there's a lot of them.
Which we don't know a ton about.
Yeah,
But if you like would want to do any sort of speech you could think of, one that you write your own or one that you don't, there's an event for it.
so there's like the public address, and then there's the interpretation events. So like the interpretation events are more what you would consider kind of like theatrical almost, where you basically take like an excerpt from like a play or movie or book, or maybe you can even write your own. I'm not-
Humorous, dramatic, original.
There's also like duo where you do with a partner. You basically, I think it's like around 10 minutes, maybe something like that, and you like perform a piece basically. There's also the public address events, and I don't know what they are.
It's like radio broadcasting.
Yeah. There's
Informative. Yeah, where you like talk about an issue.
Yeah, there's also the extemporaneous speaking events, which I think are the closer to debate because they're more basically it's you get like a topic basically, and then within like 30 minutes you have to like prepare like a 7-minute speech or something about that, arguing for or against it. It's like kind of like a resolution. So those it's like a
You have to
little
give like
bit,
an 8-minute speech, right?
I think it's 7 minutes, 7 or 8 minutes,
7 minutes,
yeah. Like that. So I think it's closer to debate, and
That's tough to do because it has to be
it's tough.
memorized.
But it's not like you write it down, you memorize the script. It's more
It's
like you
like
memorize your
points.
outline.
Yeah.
I think honestly, like any form of debate will help you build those skills, like kind of as like a direct result. Like any event that you do, like regardless of like whether it's like LD or policy or world, you're going to build skills that will help you later on, just in terms of public speaking, argumentation, critical thinking, like just any like of those skills like are kind of like bundled within debate. I think like the more you practice and the more you're kind of thrown into situations where you're like forced like to be face to face with an opponent that has like you're just kind of like forced to think critically, and that builds a lot of different skill sets. I think definitely with research, because over time you'll like become like very adept at like being able to find like carding and like evidence that will like help bolster your case, and that makes it really easy to like, even just like in English classes or in other contexts, it like becomes easier to kind of like write argumentative pieces or just like write in general. I think definitely there is a narrative aspect to debate as well. Like obviously like evidence is a huge portion, but in a lot of debate events, kind of just that like being able to convey what you're thinking in an articulate way, like that is really helped, I feel like, just competing and like writing cases. So yeah, I think you can build a lot of skill sets.
And I think that like it's because I think a lot of like times like people forget like it's not about who's right, it's about who convinced the judge more. So you really learn a lot about, it's not like obviously the content what you're debating is really important, but you know you have to debate both sides of the resolution every time, right? So I mean obviously that forces you to think both ways, but it also forces you to think not just about the content of what you're saying, but also how that content can be presented to convince somebody. And I think that, like Karathi said, all the events help you with that. But I mean, it kind of like depends. Like certain events, like policy is a little bit more research based. I think that like world schools, there's some more like impromptu skills, and it like LD, you'll learn more about philosophy, kind of stuff like that. So it does like there's some like differences between events and stuff like that. But overall, you improve your public speaking skills, you improve your research skills, you improve like. And I think it definitely also helps out in like school and stuff like that. Like, I mean, for example, like in AP classes, you know, on the exams, you have to like think fast and you have to write quick, right? And I think that debate, I mean, not single-handedly, but you know what I mean? Like it forces you to think quick, and those kinds of skills are definitely applicable to your school. And especially I think like, you know, it's obviously the most generic like writing skills because you have to write cases and stuff like that. But it's not just that, it goes beyond that, just like critical thinking and debate.
Confidence in my own words has led just like even farther outside the humanities classes, even in my STEM classes. I know because of debate that I always need to be understanding the why behind something is happening and the warrants behind different aspects in like nature and math and stuff. So that's like led me to actually like increase my scores and like justifying my answers and stuff like that. Yeah. Looks great on college apps too.
That's true.
Facts.
It's top 20. Ooh.
Yeah. And like even with like college apps, like even in like your essays, I feel like honestly like you can kind of tell like when someone has like that confidence behind their words, or like they like debate, or like you can just like kind of tell like by the way that they talk that they're either like knowledgeable or they just know what they're saying and like they understand why they're saying what they're saying.
And even if
like,
you don't know what you're saying, you sound like you do.
You sound like you do. That's another big one. Like you're able to, it's like what you were saying earlier, like it's not about like always being right, it's about being able to convince other people that you're right, which isn't always the best, like the best thing to do. But like it genuinely, like it really does help just like with communication, just like everything in general.
Okay.
So, cause like we won 2 years in a row, right? And like before those 2 years, we hadn't won in I think like 96 years.
Yeah.
Like
Carmel even had the
Carmel didn't even have like in for like 100 years we hadn't won.
I think it's also because like the year Kelly and I joined, we were freshmen, is like the first year that Carmel had won state, and I think that like we knew kind of the like there was a lot of like underdog mentality, kind of like we knew we were good, we knew we were capable, but like how are we gonna win, right? And it was really close. Like I think it was like
it's
3
been close.
points.
It's been so close these past 2 years. Oh my gosh.
We're still on top.
I think it was also like something that was really great was honestly like I think a couple years ago, or even like 4 years ago, there was absolutely no chance of us like winning, if that makes sense.
Barely even a program.
But I think there was barely a program.
Yeah, it was
like,
like
we weren't,
six years old now.
Yeah, and like 6 years, and like it's funny because like this might sound like maybe narcissistic, but like we knew that we were going to like win like 2 years ago, and it was just like the fact that we went from like not like having a program basically to like just having that like confidence, because like we were able to grow it so much. Like we just had so many people who cared so much, like so many people that like were like with us, and like we grew the program to a point where we were able to have that confidence. And I think that's something that we were all just like really proud of, especially just like like I
our
think that was
competitive schools hate us.
Yeah.
Can we do some?
We're obnoxious.
We have
Avon, Penn,
Ew,
Chesterton,
Monster. There are
Avon's always beefing with Carmel.
Yeah,
Dude, I know.
just
But
like
it's also like every school hates every school. So
yeah,
like,
Yeah.
true. But like Carmel especially.
People like
But, like,
unite to hate us now.
Haters are
That's true, but it's also like the Carmel thing. Like,
Zionsville hates us.
Potatoes are
I can say
good.
that.
Zionsville doesn't have to wait, so
Yeah.
they had to
Yeah.
wait for like a year.
Their show choir hates us, but that's like
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
off topic.
But I think that also with like, I remember like it was like the practice or like 2 weeks before like state. I remember our coach like he was like giving us like a little pep talk speech or whatever, and he was like, "I know that we can win state. Like we like it's kind of like Parati said, like we knew it was within our capabilities to win." I just remember he was like staring at me right now very intently.
in rapture.
And I think that, and then going from like, you know, winning and it's like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. Not whatever, very, very cool. And then going to the next year knowing like, oh, we have this capability and then this like flock of new people coming in
Sure.
to like,
This is Mahida. She
Yeah,
does LB.
hi. I'm a second year LD debater.
Healthy.
I think it was just so cool to see like, cause freshman year, like that senior class like graduate and then like have this like new group of like freshmen and it's like, okay, like we know they're not gonna be bad, but it's like, are they gonna be good?
Oh.
That sounded so foul.
The
But you
pressure's
know-
on as an event.
But
Yeah.
it's like it's kind of like
teaching kids.
having one state once is like there is pressure to win again.
That makes sense.
And I think a lot of the
Twice,
people who were seniors, like you look at them, you're like, oh, no one's ever gonna be good as good as them. Because even if you've reached a level, it always feels like they're better than you, right? So I think that like it was really cool to win twice.
I also think like
That was
the
cool.
way that like we were able to grow from it was really great because like we have a system right now that is like so effective in terms of like event heads and just like trickling down like to the like next generation of like debaters. Like even now I can think of at least like 10 people off the top of my head who would be like just like people that like are going to carry on like the legacy of Carmel debate, and I feel like that relationship is just like that was kind of just like making that like that was just like forged because of like our successes in the past. And I just think like just thinking back to like literally like 3 years ago when we like didn't really have like a head, like no one was really teaching, like it was all like self-taught, like it was like virtual. And I think just like we have like an insane amount of growth in like 3 years, and that's just something that like I feel like we're all like really proud of, and hopefully we will win state again. I believe in you
Delete this
guys.
if we don't.
Yeah, guys, delete this footage if we don't.
We're jinxing it.
Like,
Oh.
bad stories. We can like go around if you want.
Oh my god, yeah.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
listen, this is so funny. So because Paul's like the
Oh,
old-
it's funny.
Okay.
The
So
urn?
Paul's, yeah, listen. So Indiana like Speech and Debate Association was formed in like 1928. There's urn from that. It literally says like 1920
And
on
the
it.
urn is
So
half the
rusty,
size of
musty,
Evelina.
disgusting.
It's huge.
Either that or
And
I'm
you
short.
get it if you win state, and like they hand it to you, and
It's a
really
traveling
It's a traveling
trophy
trophy.
from like 100
And
years.
we got it back, and then in the transitioning year, so the beginning of last year, school admin lost
Well,
the urn.
basically what happened
Lost.
is
So
our
they
old
threw it away.
basically we had like our old coach, Pucci, he got a different job, so he like basically took all the trophies were in his room and he like put them in a storage closet and was like, keep them here until the next year.
March Carmel.
So we got a new coach and we're like, okay, call out meeting, let's take out the urn. So like show me nowhere to be found. And it's not just the urn, it's our trophies, like first place, second place,
Yeah.
fourth place. We had 2 NADS trophies and like all like minuscule ones, but there was also
We'd have like a search party.
yeah, and then we like literally none of the trophies were like rescued except the urn, which was found in like a trash
So we
can.
lost our state.
We found it
champ
4 days
trophy.
before state.
Yeah, so we lost the state champ trophy.
Yeah,
that
that
was
was-
needed.
Can you imagine how embarrassing that was? Like
Like win state.
the first
was-
time Carmel gets it,
It's 'cause
and it's like almost 100 years old.
And if
it
they
was
don't,
it.
like, if we didn't win, like, we wouldn't have had anything. Like, we probably would have gotten kicked out, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, the
the specific person who lost the urn, who I won't name, saw me headed down to like the club fair holding it this year, and she goes, "Oh, don't lose the urn," and I go, "It won't be me."
everyone who runs, like, the clubs and, like, the activities here, like, they all just collectively were like, well, maybe
Whatever.
we shouldn't be on camera, but, like, go screw yourself. Like, they, like, really
No,
did
it
not,
was
like,
very much like, and it's happy that we have the urn back, but you know, it was like Carmel debate at this point had been like 5 years
Yeah.
old, and it's like we had trophies, and like no, it wasn't like a huge case, but like we did have a lot of trophies, and I think that like it's not to be materialistic, but they do have a
And
meaning.
materials matter.
yeah.
Right.
matter.
And they were fully,
Oh,
like,
sorry.
weekly. We would literally have, like, officer meetings. I remember this so distinctly, just to talk about this urn. And we'd, like, be like, okay, like, have we found it? Like, have we made
And the
progress?
answer was no.
And every week, like the entire year leading up to state, like just all of the like, where's the urn? Where's the urn? And it was just like, it was kind of a mess.
And it was honestly terrifying because, like, you know, like, we could have gone kicked out. It wasn't our fault,
Yeah.
but it was.
It was
Do
Carmel's
you know what
fault,
I mean?
but
Like, it was
not
Carmel's
debate.
fault,
Yeah.
but we are Carmel Debate. And so, from everyone else's perspective, it's our fault.
Yeah.
And like we had like literally 20 debate kids at one point running around the school trying to find this urn. Like it was in some like really like weird corner of the school.
And we found it, like, Anushka sent like a picture of the urn, and I
Yeah.
was like,
I think at one point like we were considering, like I like pulled coach aside and I was like he was like talking to me
Make a
really
new
seriously,
urn.
and he was talking about how we should 3D print like a new urn to take to the state.
what?
And then like how would we give it to them as like a placebo and like switch it out after?
Wait, like,